4,000 years ago, one civilization was bigger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Over 1 million square kilometers. Cities with flush toilets and underground sewers 3,000 years before Rome. A trade network stretching to the Persian Gulf. And here's the part that breaks historians' brains. After 100 years of digging, we found no palaces, no temples, no weapon stockpiles, no images of kings, no evidence of a single war. It was either the most peaceful civilization humanity ever built, or someone erased every trace of power on purpose. And then, one day, it just went quiet. Before we dig into the one civilization that might have figured out how to live without leaders, hit like and subscribe, because if this empire could vanish without a trace, imagine how easy it'd be for you to forget to subscribe. All right, let's meet our only witness. 1927. Archaeologists digging at a site called Mohenjo-Daro pull a 4-inch soapstone statue out of the dirt. A calm, bearded face, half-closed eyes, a robe draped over one shoulder. They had absolutely no idea who he was, so they gave him a job title and called it a day. The Priest King. Nobody has ever found a single piece of evidence that he was a priest, or a king. Historians just looked at his face and thought, he's got main character energy, and that stuck for 100 years. But let's use him anyway, as our tour guide into the strangest superpower in ancient history. Welcome to the Indus Valley. Population at its peak, over 5 million people, spread across cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. And these weren't villages that got lucky. These were planned cities. Grid-patterned streets, laid out centuries before anyone had heard of a city planner. Every single brick, from one end of the empire to the other, was the exact same ratio. 4 by 2 by 1. That's not a coincidence. That's a building code enforced across 1 million square kilometers with no visible enforcer. Underneath the streets, covered drains, connected to nearly every house, flushing waste out of the city automatically. The Romans got a fancy sewer system. The Indus Valley had one 2,000 years earlier and considered it Tuesday. And on top of all that, a writing system, stamped onto thousands of small seals, used for trade contracts as far away as Mesopotamia. Merchants there literally complained in writing about shipments from Meluha, which is almost certainly them. So here's the impossible part. A civilization this organized should have a face on a throne somewhere. It doesn't. Excavate 1,000 houses in Mohenjo-Daro, and you'll find something deeply weird. They're almost all the same size. No sprawling palace next to tiny huts. No massive temple towering over everyone. Just consistently decent housing, block after block, for 5 million people. Some archaeologists call it the world's first faceless civilization. Power so distributed, or so quiet, that 4,000 years later, we can't even prove it existed. Our priest king guy? Statistically, he might just be some random dude who was really good at soapstone selfies. Meanwhile, the empire kept running like a machine nobody was steering. Same bricks, same weights, same script, same drains, for 700 years, with barely any change. That's not chaos. That's the most terrifyingly efficient bureaucracy in the ancient world. And we don't know whose bureaucracy it was. But around 1900 BC, the machine started slowing down. The mighty Sarasvati River, the one that fed dozens of Indus cities, began drying up as its water source shifted to a different river system entirely. Monsoon patterns that the whole harvest depended on started drifting east, and Mesopotamia, their biggest trading partner, was having its own Bronze Age problems and buying a lot less pottery. For decades, the popular theory was dramatic. A violent invasion, war, conquest, the whole Hollywood package. Scholars even pointed to a pile of skeletons in Mohenjo-Daro as massacre victims. Then someone actually redated the bones. They weren't from a war. They weren't even from the same time period. Some were casual later burials in an already abandoned city. The Indus Valley didn't get murdered. That theory just embarrassingly collapsed. What actually happened was slower and, honestly, creepier. Year by year, the writing on seals gets rarer. The bricks get sloppier. The legendary 4:2:1 ratio starts to slip. Streets that were once ruler straight get built over at odd angles, like nobody was enforcing the code anymore. The population doesn't die, it just drifts. East, toward the Ganges. South, toward smaller farming villages. Mohenjo-Daro's final layers of habitation are thin, poor, and quiet. A handful of families living in the ruins of a city built for tens of thousands, using rooms that used to be part of something much larger than themselves. No burning, no battle, no final stand, just fewer and fewer footprints, until one year, there weren't any left at all. And then the Indus Valley pulled off one final, absurd twist. In the 1850s, British engineers were building a railway line straight through Punjab, and they needed sturdy material for the track bed. Lying around, conveniently pre-cut, in a suspiciously uniform 4:2:1 ratio, millions of ancient bricks from a place the locals called Harappa. So for years, actual pieces of a 5,000-year-old lost civilization were getting run over by literal steam trains, one at a time, to keep the tracks level. Nobody stopped to ask why a farm town had industrial-grade bricks lying around in perfect geometry until archaeologists finally showed up in the 1920s, took one look at what was left, and realized the trains had been quietly demolishing one of the greatest cities in human history to build a railroad. So what actually killed the Indus Valley? Not war, not invasion, a slow-motion climate shift that pulled the rivers out from under humanity's most disciplined civilization, while its trading partners quietly stopped answering the mail. And to this day, their writing system, hundreds of symbols stamped on thousands of seals, remains completely undeciphered. We can't read a single sentence they left behind. We don't know their gods, we don't know their laws, we don't even know if the priest king ruled anything at all, or if he's just a guy with a nice beard who got famous 4,000 years after he died. Here's my question for you. Is a civilization that leaves no kings, no wars, and no story actually the most successful one of all? Or the easiest to erase? Tell me what you think in the comments, and subscribe, because unlike the Indus script, this channel is easy to decode. See you in the next one.